Okay. So we are at the interactionist perspective part. So basically, the interactionist perspective is going to focus on how individuals interact with one another. So you are, um, as an individual in a society, you are always interacting with different people. You're interacting with your family, with your friends, and with people maybe of different groups. And we have one group interacting with another group and things like that. So we're going to, in the interactionist perspective, we're going to pay attention to how those people interact with one another and how those groups interact with one another. The interactionist perspective views society as the product of everyday interactions of individuals. So society, like if you imagine looking at society as a whole entire picture, that whole entire picture is basically going to be made up of individual interactions with different individuals. And you can almost think of it as like when you look at, I don't know, you look at like an oil painting. If you look very, very close up, you can't see the picture. But then when you kind of move backwards, you can see more of the whole perspective, the whole picture, and the way all those things interact. That is the interactionist perspective. The key elements are is that is interested in the role symbols play in our daily lives. And then interested in topics such as child development, relationships within group, and mate selection. So, in the interactionist perspective, we're going to think about all these things and think about how they interact together to make society function. We're going to talk about child development and specifically the way that kids interact with one another, the way that people learn social norms by going to school, the way people grow as an individual, and the way groups interact with each other at school. We're going to talk about how, when we look through the lunchroom, we're going to see maybe there's people have friends of maybe a lot of times boys will hang out with boys and girls with girls, or people of different races will hang out like within their race, and why that's not why that seems maybe even a little segregated. And so that's going to be, and then we're going to see the way those people interact with each other and the way they interact as a group. And then relationships within groups. So how might your relationships be if you're in one group versus another? How people might interact, and how that might develop with their own individual psychology. And mate selection. Why do people select the mate that they do? Why are people most likely, then it's most likely, but not always, to marry within their own race, within their own religion, within their own social class? You don't usually see a lot of people marrying outside of social class. Probably you'd be more likely to see people marrying outside of race than outside of social class. You don't usually see a lot of, rich person marries poor person unless there are some otherwise circumstances. So this is going to be the interactionist perspective, really just focused on how groups interact with one another and how individuals interact within the group, and how that is going to shape our society, and make our society look the way it does.